I missed you too. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Catholic Citizen. I missed you. It's been 3 weeks since we got a chance to talk to each other. And boy, did I miss this show. We took a break for Thanksgiving. Last week we had some technical difficulties, but we're back on air to bring you this week's news from a Catholic perspective. Very excited to bring you this week's show. There's a lot of things happening in our country and world that we need to be prepared and educated about. So I look forward to bringing you this week's news. But before we do so, please, if you can patron Casa Bea Cleaning, we would tremendously appreciate that. Casa Bea is the best cleaning service there is in Northwest Ohio. Might I dare say Casa Bea is the best cleaning service in the state of Ohio. Might I dare say Casa Bea Cleaning, the best cleaning service in the United States of America. Please patron Casa Bea Cleaning today for your home, your office, whatever you need cleaned. Casa Bea will do it. Secondly, to continue the great work of this show, The Catholic Citizen, we need you to become a citizen of heaven. For $3 a month, you can see my show notes week in and week out. Where do I get these sources? Where am I? Am I just coming up with these stories? You don't know unless you become a citizen of heaven. For just $3, you can see my show notes. For about $25, you can tell me what to talk about, and I'll talk about it. Whatever you want. It doesn't have. It can be anything. I will talk about it. All you got to do is just pay $25 a month to become a citizen of heaven. And I mean, you can direct my whole show. Just sign up, theCatholicCitizen.com. All right, folks, this week's news. First and foremost, we are not replacing ourselves. The earth and civilization, we're literally heading for disaster. For so many years now, you've heard about this population myth that the earth is going to become overpopulated. People like Bill Gates scares us about this. Normally it's, I find it ironic when you go back in history and you look at who propagates these myths about the world becoming overpopulated. You know who it is? It's usually rich people. Rich people who tell us that we should be scared of all the poor people in the world. So it began in the late 1700s when some wealthy English individuals came out and they said, look, the world's becoming overpopulated. We have to make sure that we don't have too many children, so on and so forth. This was picked back up in the 1960s and 70s by professors at Stanford University, and it's still being perpetuated today, where people are saying, look, the world's becoming overpopulated. We need to make sure that everybody has contraception, that we have access to abortion, that we make sure that we don't have too many kids on Earth because there's not enough food. People forget that individuals are not just human consumers, but they're also human producers. Every human person has the ability to use their ingenuity, use new technology to come up with different ways that we can address world issues and problems. So humans can't be seen as a problem. We're also a part of the solution. But still, you have these fearmongers out there saying we must limit the population. Well, thankfully, there are some smart people out there that are now saying, look, we're not reproducing ourselves. Europe is, most countries in Europe they're having to pay families to have more babies because they're like, look, we're not having enough children. Why do you think they've allowed so much immigration in their countries in recent years? Because their own country is not repopulating themselves. That's a huge issue for social welfare states when you're trying to take care of the elderly and you don't have enough in the labor workforce to produce enough tax dollars where you can sustain taking care of those who are vulnerable. So Elon Musk recently came out and he raised eyebrows when he told Wall Street Journal reporter that civilization is going to crumble. He said if we don't reverse declining birth rates, he warned that his company, Tesla, would have to start using robots as human substitutes since the labor market can't furnish enough manpower. Quote, there are not enough people, end quote. The 50-year-old father of 6 said, quote, I can't emphasize this enough. There are not enough people. Musk pointed out a widely understood assumption that labor is the foundation of the economy. If you don't have a workforce, you don't have an economy. And we know that the capitalist system, it has plenty of faults, and we're not for a laissez-faire capitalism where anything goes. But capitalism over the past 100 years has raised more people out of poverty than any other system in human history. Without labor, production, and growth, the foundation of our economy is severely compromised. He made the statement while explaining how his company, Tesla, would have to start using those robots again as human substitutes. He also hinted at the irony that primarily people in the high IQ brackets are the ones that opt out of having more children or indeed any children at all. And yet so many people, he says, including smart people, think there are too many people in this world and think the population is growing out of control. It is completely the opposite. That's why I'm having babies, and lots of them. So we got 3 babies, but we're pregnant. Number 4 is on its way. Praise the Lord. Anyway, with that being said, let's go back to some more news here. Secondly, Jussie Smollett, you might have been following this case a little bit. An individual well-known in the entertainment industry claimed that 2 individuals attacked him. They were pro-Trump men, attacked him because of his skin color and sexual orientation. And after Jussie Smollett was attacked, leading figures in the United States of America came out and said some pretty harsh things. Joe Biden in 2019 said this, now our current president: "We must stand up and demand that we no longer give this safe haven, this hate safe harbor, that homophobia and racism have no place on our streets and in our hearts. We are with you, Jussie." Biden's eventual running mate, Kamala Harris, said, "This was an attempted modern-day lynching. We must confront this hate." He made it up. Everything. He paid his friends basically to attack him. And he's just been proven guilty that that's exactly what happened. That's why when you see these cases hit the media and all the individuals from the progressive left try to turn it and say, this is what has happened, this is the message you should receive, take a deep breath. Let's go to the tape. Let's let all the evidence come out. Because if it has and fits their agenda, they'll push it as far as they can, including calling it a modern-day lynching. The actor made it all up. It wasn't a modern-day lynching. The actor made it up so that you would think that this country is racist. When those terrible deaths occurred in, I think it's Waukesha, Wisconsin, where the gentleman drove through the Christmas parade crowd and killed, I think there was at least 5 deaths, many more injured. The mainstream media blasted all over the place that it was the car that did it. No mention of the gentleman or individual because he was a Black Lives Matter supporter, talking about not liking white people, but it didn't fit their agenda. So it became, in the mainstream media, a crash. The crash that killed 5 people. The crash that went through the Christmas parade. It wasn't about the individual who actually did it, but it was about the vehicle that caused the crash. You see, everything that is presented to us from the media today is slanted. It's what makes shows like this really important, The Catholic Citizen. It's why we want you to support us. It's not because we think we're super important. It's just simply because we recognize that the way the media is presenting the news today, it's creating a certain framework which is trying to adjust people's worldviews that will support their particular agenda. And there is a particular agenda happening in our world and our country today which wants to see the United States of America, the beacon of freedom that it has been for the world, it wants to see that destroyed. And so we and other organizations stand in the way of that. It's why when I mention next vaccines, YouTube is now going to limit the algorithms of the people that I can reach on the internet. And I'm going to say it, vaccines, vaccines, vaccines. Okay, so go ahead and limit me. I'm not going to stop talking about what is the truth about this reality. So Dr. Fauci recently just came out on a CNN interview. Dr. Fauci, who again has lied to the American public, has said repeatedly that the United States government, nor the NIH, the National Institute of Health, funds gain-of-function research. Oh, by the way, the Freedom of Information Act revealed that the United States government was, in fact, funding gain-of-function research in the Wuhan lab in China. These are the individuals that you're trusting for your medical advice right now in our country. The same individuals that like to test, human fetus scalps on rats and things of that nature. Those are the same individuals supporting that research. The same individuals that are killing dogs by leaving them alive, ripping out their vocal cords, and allowing flies and gnats to eat their faces. That's the testing that they're doing at the National Institute of Health. And they're giving you health advice, and you're following it lock, stock, and barrel. But he recently came out and said, it's not a matter of when, it's a matter of when, not if, Fauci answered when he was asked about whether or not how is it going to be determined if you're fully vaccinated? So it's not just going to be 1 shot or 2 shots, but we're looking at 3 shots, mean you're fully vaccinated. So you're worried about your rights and privileges, or maybe you weren't. You're saying, well, I'll get vaccinated. It's okay. And maybe you discerned that vaccination was best for you. Blessed be God. You did that. My issue is when you start removing rights and privileges from those individuals who discern through good conscience, through their religious faith, their religious experience, that they should not be vaccinated. Excuse me. From their scientific research, from their conscience, when they look at, okay, well, when I'm looking at what's going on in the country and who's saying this, maybe I don't want to get this vaccine. But Fauci is moving the bar back again. What does it mean to be fully vaccinated? Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla suggested on Wednesday that indeed a 4th COVID vaccination could soon be necessary to adequately protect an individual from new variants and strains of the coronavirus. I think we'll need a 4th dose, he said. With Omicron, we need to wait and see because we have very little information. We may need it faster. Of course, Pfizer's made $35 billion over these vaccines. And in that same, or in a different interview, Boria was quoted as saying with the BBC, I think this might be a yearly need to be vaccinated with the coronavirus. So what are we going to do about this? There's some countries, and look, this is why I'm raising alarm. And some people might call me an alarmist. Some of my friends are like, Peter, you're a little crazy, just calm down. I'm like, let's look around what's happening around the country, around the world, because I don't want that to happen in this country. And it very well could if we continue to elect the current leadership that we have. But right now in Greece, a democracy, they've mandated that all citizens over 60 years of age receive COVID-19 vaccination by mid-January or face monthly fines until they relent and obey. Greeks over the age of 60, quote, must book their appointment for his first jab by January 16th, said Prime Minister, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name, but their vaccination is henceforth compulsory. This goes against the Nuremberg Code. You know, after World War II and, the Germans were testing on Jews and other people, the world community came out and said, we will never make anything medically compulsory again, that you have to jab yourself with a medicine that you don't want. But here we are. Greece is doing it. The Baltic Republic of Latvia has instituted taxation without representation for voters whose lawmakers refuse to be vaccinated or comply with COVID-19 regulations. So if you're a lawmaker, you don't want to be vaccinated, you don't have a vote. You might say, well, Latvia, well, I don't even know where that is. Australia, you know where that's at? Has announced that it will require all citizens, reportedly starting at the age of 14, to be fully vaccinated by February or face fines and possible imprisonment. This is the same country, Australia, a Western democracy, which is putting people in camps right now, folks. Quarantine camps. You don't believe me? Go look it up. This is the direction the world is heading. We're putting people in camps. Where else in human history have we put people in camps where it might cause some alarm? Whether it's in this country alone, World War II, when we put the Japanese in camps because we were worried about the Japanese living here in the United States. Now, thankfully, here in the States, the Senate just voted to reject the vax mandate coming out from President Biden's office by a vote of 52-48. Two Democratic senators, Joe Manchin of West Virginia and John Tester of Montana, joined all 50 Republicans in favor of the resolution. But that's a 52-48 margin. Imagine in a couple of years that the Democrats take back the Senate. They maintain control of the House. What is going to happen if Democrats or progressives continue to hold on to power in Washington, D.C. when it comes to these mandates? It's already been floated out there by the administration. Maybe it's time to talk about compulsory mandates. We're seeing it happen in New York City. You want to see a test case right here in the United States of America. It's happening where they're making kids of school age do it in California. You don't think that that's their plan for the rest of it? It's not about the vaccine. It's not about the illness. And again, we take the illness seriously. It's not about any of that anymore, but it's about control. The government is attempting to control the population. And if you don't think so, then you've been sleeping. Speaking about scary things coming from the government, you won't believe what's coming out of Switzerland. Reports that a death machine dreamed up by an assisted suicide advocate in 2018 appears now to be a reality in Switzerland. The Sarco machine was developed by Exit International and was cleared by legal review, meaning it could start operating as soon as next year. Good things coming out of Australia. Australian euthanasia activist Phil Nitschke designed the Sarco machine to be easily available. It is able to be created using a 3D printer, and it even comes with its own coffin. How convenient. In 2018, Nitschke put the designs for the Sarco online, meaning anybody could pick up and design their own. Quote from Nitschke himself, "The capsule is sitting on a piece of equipment that will flood the interior with nitrogen, rapidly reducing the oxygen level to 1% from 21% in about 30 seconds. The person will feel a little disoriented and may feel slightly euphoric before they lose consciousness. Death takes place through hypoxia and hypocapnia, oxygen and carbon dioxide deprivation, respectively. There is no panic, no choking feeling," end quote. Seriously, folks, what could go wrong by creating more efficient, effective means of killing people? But this is the culture of death. They spend so much money into helping kill people. Like they're helping kill people, making it easier for people to die. Whether it's at the end of life with the new Sarco death machine or at the beginning of life. I mean, think of the billions of dollars that flow into the abortion industry in this country alone. And some of the numbers that I've reported in the past, friends, I've been wrong. My numbers have been too low. The Guttmacher Institute actually puts on their website now that there's 76 million abortions worldwide every single year. I've been quoting a figure around 48 million. This is beyond biblical revelation type numbers. The amount of people that we kill each year around our world. And if it's not enough to kill the young and innocent, now we want to kill the aged and dying. And oh, by the way, of all the issues and problems that the state of California is having, they're talking about their state, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, becoming a sanctuary state for abortion. Someone should tell Governor Newsom there what sanctuary means. It's a place of protection where human life is cared for, is protected, not killed. So they're talking about if Roe v. Wade is overturned with the current Dobbs v. Jackson case before the Supreme Court at the moment, that they'll become a sanctuary state for abortion. They'll fly women in, allow them to get abortions, bring them to the spa, kill their children, and then fly them back home. Look, did a little research, a little reading into the original Roe v. Wade case. You can go and you can actually listen to the oral arguments. I highly recommend you do so, especially if you're pro-choice. You find yourself on the left, you're progressive. Listen to some of these arguments. It's so incredible. Sarah R. Weddington, who argued for abortion laws in the Roe v. Wade case, listen to some of the ways that she justifies abortion in that original case. Quote, "If the pregnancy would result in the birth of a deformed or defective child, then a woman has no relief. The pregnancy results in a defected or deformed child. So immediately you have someone questioning the worth of someone based upon whether they consider a child defected or deformed. God doesn't make a defected or deformed child. God makes every child in his image and likeness, period. There's no exceptions to that rule. Because if you're going to determine that this child is defective or deformed, where does that slope end? Because today it's ending, well, the child's mentally challenged. Today it's ending with, I'm pregnant with a boy. I actually wanted a girl. Yes, sex-selective abortions are a thing, folks, even here in the United States of America. She continues, I think it's without question that pregnancy to a woman can completely disrupt her life. So children are seen immediately as a disruption rather than a gift, rather than fulfilling the deepest meaning and purpose of a husband and a wife's purpose to create new life. She continues, whether she's unmarried, whether she's pursuing an education, whether she's pursuing a career, whether she has family problems, all of the problems of personal and family life for a woman are bound up in the problem of abortion. So a pregnancy to a woman is perhaps one of the most determinative aspects of her life. She continues, it disrupts her body. It disrupts her education. It disrupts her employment. And often it disrupts her entire family life. Yes, new life does disrupt everything. New life should. It's beautiful. But notice, to her, to Sarah Weddington, it's it. It's not about a child. It's not about a boy or girl. It's about it. Using dehumanizing language to pass or to get Roe v. Wade decided. So it's about defective, a deformed child. It's about it. It's about pregnancy. It's not about a human life in there. Because look, she says, we feel that because of the impact on women, this certainly, and as far as there are any rights which are fundamental, is a matter which is such fundamental and basic concern to the woman involved that she would be allowed to make the choice as to whether continue or terminate her pregnancy. So even back in 1972, they couldn't say the term child. It's about terminating your pregnancy. Well, what is a pregnancy? It's a baby, folks. And when you give birth, you don't give birth to your body, to your pregnancy. You give birth to a child. Ms. Weddington's arguments demonstrate the abortion industry and the movement has been based on euphemisms and lies from the very start. In fact, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who began NARAL, which is the abortion rights, basically founding movement, which got abortion legalized in this nation, you know what they did? They lied throughout the whole process directly to the American people. First, they said that when we look at the polls, 60% of Americans favor permissive abortion. Bernard Nathanson says, quote, we simply fabricated the results of those fictional polls. We made those up. We made them up because we don't want the people, you don't want to be in the minority. So immediately, if we make up these polls and say 60%, it makes those who are pro-life feel like, oh, I'm in the minority. He continued, we also lied about back alley abortions. He said that we continued to tell the media that there was 1 million back alley illegal abortions done every year in the country. 1 million. He lied by about 900,000. Then he continued to lie about the women dying from these illegal abortions. The number was around 200 to 250 annually. But the figure, quote, the figure constantly fed to the media was 10,000. 10,000. Then he finishes. These false figures took root in the consciousness of Americans, convincing many that we needed to crack the abortion law. Another myth we fed to the public through the media was that legalizing abortion would only mean that abortions taking place illegally would then be done legally. In fact, of course, abortion is now being used as a primary method of birth control in the United States, and the annual number of abortions has increased, 1,500% since legalization. Nathanson's admissions reveal that the abortion lobby generated a false media hysteria, which we still see today. Under the guise of protecting women, activists pushed abortion into the American culture, and we've been living with the devastating consequences ever since. But look, those lies perpetrated back then has seeped in the consciences of the American public, and it made its way all the way to the Supreme Court. And there's members of the Supreme Court and members of the pro-choice movement who are still living in 1972 and 1973 when the case was finally decided. Don't believe me? Go listen to the tape of the arguments with Dobbs v. Jackson's Whole Women's Health here. Alina Kagan, one of the more progressive judges appointed to the Supreme Court, made comments during the case and just brought up, since 1973, there's been people who are pro-life, pro-choice. What really has changed since 1973? When she said this, I was listening to it live. I'm like, are you kidding me? What's changed since 1973? Has she heard or seen anything about ultrasound technology? Look, we have the capability now. In the original case of Roe v. Wade, when they asked the pro-life lawyers, when does life begin? The pro-life lawyer was like, we really don't know. We're not sure when the soul enters the person. clearly there was a lack of appreciation or understanding at that time about biology, human embryology. We know now, we've seen the moment of that amazing moment of fertilization when baby becomes alive, when sperm meets egg and a new unique human being is created that the world has never ever seen before. We can see that now. We can see that now. And we can see into the womb at a beating heart at 6 weeks. We can see the sucking of the thumb at 15, a child's ability to even survive today outside the womb at 21 weeks. We know, and embryologists overwhelmingly agree, that at the very moment of conception, a new human life is formed. And again, I've had friends just, why are you so focused on this? Folks, this is the foundation of our society. And as Elon Musk said, civilization is dying. And it's dying because we are killing our children. And until we reverse that, until we say that Roe must go, that abortion must be abolished, the nation will continue to die. And that's not a fun, easy process. Roe must go. Roe is anti-science, it's anti-human, it's anti-woman, it's anti-child. Roe, abortion, its legacy, it's time for it to end. And it's time for you and I as Catholic citizens to get out there and demand that it be so. It's time for us to demand even that our church leaders, and we always do this in charity and love, but we invite them and we challenge them. It's time to get off the fence. It's time to stop trying to play and placate both sides. It is time for us to boldly stand up and say, as we did during the time of segregation, as some of the bishops did back then, they said, look, if you support segregation, you're going against the Catholic faith. If you support segregation, we're going to excommunicate you. The bishop from New Orleans did just this. Today, we need to do the same. For any politician which supports abortion on demand, supports pro-abortion policies, like Nancy Pelosi, who claims the Catholic faith as her own, like the President of the United States, Joe Biden, it's time for us to all stand up and say, no, it's not what the Catholic faith is. It's not what we teach. It's not who we are. You have a choice. You either support life or you leave the church. Simple as that. It's time for our bishops, our priests, our lay leaders, everybody to get on the same page and be unified, not for unity's sake, but to be unified for the truth, for Jesus Christ. We'll talk to you next week on The Catholic Citizen.